Diffusion. What in the fresh heck is it, and what are the different types you need to know for Unit 3? Well, baby, that's what this video is all about, so if you're ready to get them brain cows milked, let's get to it. So as is our custom, let's begin with a definition. Diffusion is the process by which a cultural trait spreads from one place to another. Here's a cultural trait, and then it spreads to all these places. That is diffusion. And then I need to give you one more bit of juicy vocabulary related to this process. The place where this cultural trait originates is known as a cultural hearth. And it's from the cultural hearth that traits diffuse to other places. Easy peasy mac and cheesy. Okay, so now that you know that, let me introduce you to two of the major types of diffusion. Oh, and if you want note guides to follow along with this video, then check the link in the description. So the first type of diffusion you need to know is relocation diffusion, which refers to the spread of cultural traits that result from the migration of people. And for my money, that's a pretty good name for it. People start here in their cultural hearths with their language and food and religion, and then they relocate and take those traits with them. Boom, relocation diffusion. And you can see this kind of diffusion in the spatial distribution of religion. For example, many Latin American and South American countries are predominantly Catholic Christian. And if you know your history, that should sound kind of weird because their ancestral and indigenous religions were emphatically not Christian. So what explains all this? Relocation diffusion? Dang straight it does. This whole area of the world was colonized by European Catholics, not least the Spanish and the Portuguese, and they brought their religion from their cultural hearth and converted, oftentimes forcibly, the indigenous populations to Christianity. Or another example would be French-speaking Quebec in Canada. The majority of all other Canadian provinces speak English mainly, but not Quebec. They be speaking French. And that's because, again, during the age of European imperialism, this area was a French colony, and so as French people relocated to this area, they brought their French with them. Okay, now the second major type of diffusion is known as expansion diffusion, and this describes the spread of a cultural trait beyond a cultural hearth, apart from the movement of people. So don't get confused. In both types of diffusion, cultural traits are moving beyond the cultural hearth. But in relocation diffusion, it's the people who are carrying those traits elsewhere, whereas in expansion diffusion, the people stay put and the traits grow legs and start spreading without the people. And wouldn't you know it, there are actually 3 subtypes of expansion diffusion that you need to know, and you can distinguish each of them by their unique spatial pattern. First is contagious diffusion, which describes the rapid spread of a cultural trait to adjacent populations without regard to race, class, or any other cultural hierarchy. Now, you probably associate the word contagious with disease, and that's good. That's exactly what this kind of diffusion looks like. There's Randy sitting in the desk behind you, coughing and hacking and spewing his nasty germs over everyone all around. And those germs don't care what race you are or how wealthy you are or whatever. They are equal opportunity invaders to anyone sitting around Randy. Anyway, most of the world's major agricultural advancements and technologies, for example, spread from farmer to farmer in this way. But in the age of the internet and social media, traits can spread contagiously without people physically being near each other. And a good example here would be the diffusion of slang words among you youngins. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, lots of you guys started leaving comments on my videos saying, "I stan Heimler." I don't even know if that was a compliment or an insult, but it was everywhere, and then I began seeing that word all over social media. But now nobody stands anything anymore. And I have no idea what the kids are saying today, like, I'm a bald man in my 40s, so, don't judge me. The point is, that kind of slang spreads contagiously from person to person, regardless of who they are. But the second kind of diffusion you need to know is called hierarchical diffusion, which describes a top-down spread of a cultural trait. In other words, this trait originates among people or places with power and then filters down to the common rabble like you and me. For example, Jennifer Aniston's haircut in Friends was iconic and inspired fans all over the world to go to the salon and get the Rachel. Or take farming technology. When a new technology like a combine is introduced, it makes harvesting crops real efficient, but it's also real expensive. So that technology spreads only among wealthy farmers for a time, and then as the technology becomes more widespread and cheaper, it diffuses to farmers with less wealth. Or take a historical example from the Holy Roman Empire. In 1555, the Peace of Augsburg was signed, and that agreement gave each regional prince in that empire the right to determine if their subjects would be Catholic or Protestant Christian. And whatever that prince chose, well, that's the flavor of Christianity that all his subjects became. And then finally, we have stimulus diffusion, which describes the process by which the idea behind a cultural trait stimulates a new but related cultural trait. For example, yoga is a popular way to contort one's bodies into shapes I can only dream of. But yoga actually originated in ancient South Asia as an integrated and deeply religious practice. However, as it has gained popularity throughout the world, the religious piece of it has largely been discarded, and now people just get into their scorpion pose, for funsies. Or my favorite example of stimulus diffusion would be the different kinds of menu items found at McDonald's throughout the world. As you probably know, the Big Mac is their signature sandwich. But when McDonald's came to India, they faced a problem. Indians were willing to accept the concept of fast food, but not 2 all-beef patties since, cows are sacred in their culture. So McDonald's innovated and introduced the Maharaja Mac, which is chicken-based. Okay, click here to keep reviewing for Unit 3, and click here to grab my video note guides, which will help you get all the content of this course firmly crammed into your brain full. And thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you on the flip-flop. Heimler out.